Yeah, it's like, let's walk this through. So we don't have any cops. We have decided as a society that we're going to handle this stuff ourselves. If we see things that people are doing wrong, we're going to deal with it. Okay, who's going to deal with it? Yeah. Well, not everybody, because not everybody is mentally or physically equipped to be able to handle something like that. So it's like, okay, so we're going to need to get some people that first of all are willing to go do it, and then have the means to do it. They're big enough, strong enough, mean enough, whatever.
They have the weaponry.
So we're going to need tools, because this person may not go willingly. So we're going to need some handcuffs to put them in, and we probably better take a gun.
Yeah.
Because he might try to hurt us. We need to be able to defend ourselves. But then, he may not recognize our authority either to hold him accountable for that. So we need something that designates us as the authority to be able, wait a minute, sounds a whole lot like a cop.
Guys, welcome back to SOGTV. Today I have a very special guest. I say special because he's kind of half retarded. No, I'm just kidding. He's a buddy of mine. We go way back to good old fraternity days, who is now a police officer and probably the only person I think that's smarter than me. That's because I don't think about other people. But anyways, here's my good friend, Jon Little, a.k.a. Jon Little. Corporal Jon Little. How's it going, bud?
It's good.
Good. It's nice.
Yeah, you missed some titles there.
Yeah, I just, there's a lot of titles that I just don't pay attention to.
I have to say the Lord Reverend.
Yeah.
Corporal.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, he actually did the wedding for me and my current wife. Yeah. The one that actually is working out. At least she puts up with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I went online and got the Irish Lord certification as well. So it's a bucket list of mine to have as many titles as possible.
That's funny. Just like, what do I put here? I'm like, Lord, title, Mr., they, them.
Instructor.
Instructor. Oh, yeah, you are an instructor too.
Yeah.
Instructor certified. I don't know. But now you've been at the same department for years now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been 11 and a half years now, just about. So,
wow.
Yeah, so out of 16 years total and 11 and a half years where I'm at now. So,
wow. I remember when you were working a detention center, and I was working at Dakota PD, and you bailed me out of jail.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I think that was the day. I think that kind of was the tipping point where we were like, this is probably, hanging out with the fraternity is not something we should be doing anymore.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I was I was totally sober, but there are some departments out there that actually, most of the time, people don't understand your attitude makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And in some departments that are very good old boy, they don't really care about the law, the Constitution, or anything. You just humor them, because while you're on the scene with them, they're in control.
Right.
And I got arrested for, actually, I'll tell you the story, because I'm not ashamed of it. I told my chief the very next day, so it wasn't a secret. I was we were having our bid day party. This was, I don't know if you went to, did you go to it?
Yeah, I think I was there for that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there was a whole group that got arrested.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And they got arrested because they ran.
Right.
Because I remember, like, my buddy, I'm not going to mention his name in case, because now he's a real good preacher guy and stuff. Or at least it's in church a lot, which is really surprising. Yeah. I thought the only time he'd go to church was like AA or something.
Hey, we all start somewhere.
Yeah, I know, right? But they showed up. I was the designated driver. Hadn't had a drop to drink. Mm-hmm. And it's a private building, a women's auxiliary in the county. not accessible directly from the road. You can't really even see it. And I see all these cop cars coming in. What people don't understand is when you have a private party, it is treated like a private residence. You have to have PC to enter without asking, or you have to ask. Mm-hmm. They had neither.
Right.
And they just started entering, and then they lined us all up against the wall. And I voluntarily walked over there, handed them my license without them asking me, and I said, hey, you know you guys can't do this, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, what makes you think you know anything about the law? At that time, I was worse than I am now about not shutting up. And I said, well, I scored top of my class in the legal block at the academy, so I might know something about the law. And I'm a nerd. I pay attention to law really closely. And he said, oh, really? And he said, why don't you go line up against the wall again? A few minutes later, the deputy that was in charge of everything comes up. He says, hey, everybody that's designated drivers, step forward. And I stepped forward. He said, except you can go back there. And so I sat back. And then he said, now I want everybody to find a designated driver and get your ass home. Do not get out again or you will be arrested. Except you. You stay there.
Yeah.
15 minutes later, while I'm sitting there by myself, he comes up to me and he starts bitching at me about why I need to learn how to be quiet and know my place. Mm-hmm. And this is his county. And I have no authority there. He said, wait here while I figure out what to do. Comes back, tells me to turn around, puts handcuffs on me. And I'm sorry, he cuffed me from the front. And sits me in the car with the marshals, the Indian marshals, Cherokee, I believe.
Yeah.
And I asked the marshal, I looked at him, I was like, why am I under arrest? And he said, I have no idea. So we get in the jail, and I sit in there, wait for booking, and we finally go through everything, which they strip searched me, which, again, a lot of people don't understand. According to the law, the Constitution, you cannot be strip searched unless they have probable cause to believe that you have drugs or weapons. Probable cause believes during that scene, something you've said, or previous record of drugs or weapons. Which had none of it. And but they strip searched me. They even made me take a shower and de-lice me because I obviously had lice. And then I go sit in this small little room with 15 other people that had been arrested. Then I saw some of the people I knew. So it made things easier, but I was just pissed. I didn't get to make a phone call.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how I was going to get out because I didn't really have people to call because all the people I knew were arrested. Except you. And luckily, you actually showed up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, something like that, and bailed me out. And then I went, first thing I did, I'd go to the department and I talked to the chief. And I had him at that time, we had the computer programs that we could actually look in all the booking photos and stuff. So he looked at my arrest report and I had my picture and stuff. And I said, do I look like I'm intoxicated? He said, you look like you're pissed. I said, I was. And then he said, did you learn anything? I said, yes, I did. He said, what's that? I said, shut up. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing got dismissed.
Right.
I went to the county and I said, hey, listen here. And they saw that. They knew they didn't have a case against me.
Right.
I mean, I could fight it. They didn't even check to see if I was intoxicated.
Right.
Which I wasn't. I hadn't had anything to drink.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have sued them, but I was new.
Yeah. And I remember that one because I was like, whenever I heard that you'd gotten arrested for PI, it just blew my mind because I was like, he's not even been drinking. So how is he being arrested for PI?
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember Lori and I woke up that morning and drove back to Tahlequah from Broken Arrow, and we ended up bonding out like 3 or 4 people.
Oh, wow.
So,
and I never paid you back for that.
Well, it happens.
I'm not going to actually.
It's crazy because, to not trying to speak ill on any agency or any officer, but like, I feel like sometimes what happens, especially like in this situation, is it's a college town They're used to going into these places where immediately off the bat they see clearly kids that are under the age of 21 in possession of alcohol that are drinking, clearly intoxicated. Yeah. So automatic, boom, PC, we go in, and now we're going to break up this party.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens over and over again enough times that they become complacent. And then now when they go to this party, they don't even look for that PC anymore to establish that first. They just walk right in because well, we've had it every other time. So we just walk right in. And I kind of feel like that's what happened that night was they didn't necessarily have the PC they needed to come in, but they're so used to coming in because it's so easily to find that they just made a mistake. And then, we've talked about this before, the criminalization of the public intox statute.
Yeah.
Public intox.
Which is only a paragraph.
Yeah, it's not. So Title 21 of Oklahoma State statute is where
37.8 or something.
Title 21 is where all of our criminal law lies.
Yeah.
And public intox is in Title 63, which is health and public safety.
Yeah.
I believe it's 63. But it's not a criminal statute. It is a health and public safety statute. It is designed as it's basically an emergency order of detention, like what we would do for somebody who's having a mental health crisis. The way that statute is written is, you're supposed to only arrest somebody for public intox if you've exhausted all other means of trying to find a way to get them home safely. And, people just, he's drunk, he's going to jail for public intox. That's not what that's for. What that's for is, okay, I've got this guy that's drunk. He's walking out into traffic. He's, clearly going to injure himself if he's not taken care of, and I can't get him home. I've asked him for phone numbers, people I can call. I've tried to ask him where his house is. We've tried everything we can to get him, and he's just too intoxicated to help us help him. And so the only thing we can do for this guy now is take him, put him in the drunk tank, let him sober up, and then get him home, the next day. I mean, at our agency, we're a 10-day holding facility. So if you get arrested and you can't bond out, you sit for 10 days and then you're done. But public intox, we only hold people for 24 hours on a public intox charge. That's it. After 24 hours, even if they haven't bonded, they're out. And I think the bond's only like $50.
Nice.
So, but yeah, so it's frustrating when you see departments that, get things twisted and don't necessarily do things the way they should be done.
Yeah.
Because, this is a job that you don't have to be an asshole to do.
Yeah.
And you don't have to look down on people to do. You can do this job in a respectful way. And so, especially, any involvement that you've ever had with law enforcement where you're like, why are they being that way? It just gets to you. So.
Yeah. I've had, I call it badge heavy syndrome.
Yeah.
Where the badge seems to be outweighing everything. They just think they get the power control, which honestly, I've spoken to a lot of people that are, let's say, anti-police, and they have opinions, and it's based on so few cops. Mm-hmm. But they'll say, they have this power control. But then you see these other people that if they would have been in the same position, like you've seen them shoot, no shoot scenarios, where the pastor that's, I think I saw one that was a BLM activist in Texas. He did a shoot, no shoot scenario. He used his gun.
Shot everybody
every time. And it's like there was only like one scenario that was actually you should have used a gun.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that.
Yeah.
It's not an emotional reaction and shouldn't be. And there are cops out there like that. But Einstein, now I don't know if the story's true, but I've heard the story so many times, might as well say it's true. Einstein was teaching something, and he went 9 times 0 is 0, 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. I'm not going to keep doing it because I don't know if I remember all of it. But by the time he went to 9 times 9, he said 82, and everybody started laughing at him. And because he's in these university students, this prestigious school, and they're like, that's 81. Every idiot knows that.
Right.
And he was like, see, I got every one of these problems right. But the only thing y'all remember is the one I got wrong.
Yep.
And that's what you make fun of me for, and that's what you judge me for.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that cops are still people, and there's a lot of laws, and they change. There's 2 times the laws will generally change. And that's either, I believe, November is when most laws go into effect, and then if there's an emergency, they'll go into effect like pretty soon, right after the law passes. And it's hard to keep up with that. In most departments, especially small departments, they don't require you to constantly take classes on it.
Yeah, and they don't. You're not being forced. Some of those agencies, they don't. Put out the legal updates. You're kind of expected to do that on your own.
And that's what made me a nerd. I did it on my own.
I know. I mean, because it's you have to.
Yeah.
There's, everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's probably other professions where you're held to the high of the standard that we're held to in this profession, but very few.
Yeah.
We're expected to be 100% right all the time, every time. And it gets difficult. I mean, I don't think people understand just the level of information that we have to keep and maintain in our heads. Because we have to know the criminal law, we have to know the civil law.
On scene.
Yeah, on scene. We're sitting there, we walk up on scene, and we're sitting here analyzing every single thing that's going on at the scene at the time, trying to keep track of who's my suspect, who's my victim, are these witnesses, are they involved? Where are there any potential threats? Are there weapons? Could there be weapons here? Could he potentially be concealing something? What's he doing? Why is he going over here? What's his, attitude of what's going on? And while we're analyzing everything that's going on, at the same time going, okay, what crime do I have? What elements need to be met to determine if I'm going to make an arrest? And we have to look at the civil side of things too and go, okay, if I go do this, am I going to be in violation of any civil law? And, all that information processing at the same time. And then they want to know, you make a simple mistake and everybody wants to come down and go, he's a terrible cop and they need more training.
And that doesn't even include the overall, how do I solve this problem?
Right. Exactly. And then on top of all of it, you may not be arresting anyone. There may not be a crime that's been committed. And so now it's, how do I solve this situation for these people so that, one, they're not fighting anymore. They can get some rest or whatever. And 2, I don't have to come back out here.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you have to take your cop hat off, put on your therapist hat, and sit here and do, on the spot marriage counseling.
Yeah.
To try to solve the situation. And I don't know of very many other jobs where, okay, this is your profession, this is your job that you do, but at any moment you could be expected to do another profession.
Oh. Yeah. It like I've worn a lot of different hats, and good thing is I'm no longer a cop, so I can talk about some of my cases I've had without giving names or the department, because I don't want to some Trailer Park Joe is going to remember and look, hey, he's talking about me, I'm going to go sue him. But they're probably all drunk right now anyway. So
you got 2 years.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations for a civil suit's 2 years.
Yeah.
Once it's over, you're done.
Way too late now, unless you're P. Diddy. Sorry. There was this one call that I got that I show up on scene, and here's what happened. The wife was cheating on her husband at her boyfriend's house with her daughter there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything, right? The husband beat up the boyfriend, not in my presence, I can't do anything.
Yep.
Even if there's a child present, it doesn't matter. A physical conflict, not related,
Right.
is not.
Yeah, they're not related by blood. They're not in any kind of relationship. There's no
Yeah, they're not
social-
under the same household.
Yeah, nope. So
but-
all you have is assault and battery, which is a misdemeanor that did not occur in your presence.
So, but here's the thing. If I do not separate the husband and the wife, she's going to be beat. I'm going to
Right.
get another call. So I thought about that. I got the whole situation trying to figure out what's going on. And what I did was I'm like, okay, so the suspect knocks on the door. Kid answers the door. I say kid, he was in his 20s. Kid answers the door and said, well, you can't come in. And he hears his wife back there and the kid. So he pushes the door open, goes in, catches him, and beats his ass. Felony B&E. He broke the threshold with the purpose of committing a crime.
Right.
I knew it'd get thrown out. I knew it for a fact. It was not going to stick. Not in this county that I was in. Because I knew the DA pretty well. But I knew it would separate it.
Right.
And it did. Everybody, my chief even said, why did you arrest him? And I told him. They're like, yeah, but it's not going to stick. I'm like, but that's not my job. My job is to sometimes it's not to convict somebody of a crime. It's
Right.
just to find the peace. And that's what I did. Now, you talk to two different people, you're going to get two different results. You talk to his people, and they're going to say, I violated his rights.
Yeah.
That I shouldn't have arrested him. He didn't break into a place, blah, blah, blah. So this rumor goes around. I don't know if it actually did or not. I didn't listen to rumors, to be completely honest. And then you ask her, that, oh, yeah, this cop saved my life.
Yeah.
So no matter what, we're going to lose.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's anybody that knows anybody that's been in law enforcement, they'll tell you that domestic situations are going to be the most dangerous, because here you are showing up on scene with this woman whose husband's been beating the crap out of her, and then time for him to go to jail. Next thing you know, here she comes with a kitchen knife because you're taking her husband to jail. You know, and
I've arrested for almost that exact thing, except she was the one that called.
yeah.
You know, and I ended up arresting her and then having to write a report to the social services and take all 7 kids away. It was horrible. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But what do you do?
Right.
Let them beat each other up in front of their kids?
Right.
If I didn't report something, but
Right.
who are they going to blame? They're going to say the cops took my kids away. We don't take kids away.
No.
But the public thinks we do. We have that kind of power. We don't have the power to take
No.
children away.
No, DHS has more power to go into somebody's house than we do.
Our only purpose of being there with DHS is to protect DHS.
Yes, we're just bodyguards at that
That's
point.
it. We can't do anything. We happen to see something, that's different.
Yeah.
But we can't search. We can't do anything.
Yep.
But a lot of people, they have no idea, and they don't even research it. I mean, you've worked in a jail. How many jailhouse lawyers do we have?
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them think they know what the law is. Somebody told me the other day, oh, you can't have unmarked cars anymore. It's against the law. I'm like, what? I would talk to a chief buddy of mine yesterday, actually. He said, no. He said they changed the laws a little bit, but you can still have unmarked cars.
Yeah.
So now what you're going to have is you're going to have a bunch of people trying to sue cops because they think that you can't have unmarked cars. It's entrapment.
I had a guy that I stopped it was dark. I can't remember if I was on evening shift and it had gotten late, or if I was on like the start of my midnight shift. But I was sitting off the side of the road, blacked out, just trying to see if I'd catch anybody speeding on that stretch of road. And sure enough, here he came. And he said, you can't black out like that. I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, I thought the law said that you had to have like at least like your lights on or something so that we could see that there's a police officer there. And I'm like, well, that would kind of defeat the purpose of why I'm here, right? You know,
Yeah.
Like you don't go hunting in the woods and announce yourself when you get there. Hey, deer, I'm here.
Or I like you've been following me for more than 2 miles.
Yeah.
You can't do that. I'm like, what? I just did.
Yeah.
That was my favorite answer. I'm like, not politically correct if people haven't figured that out by now. And I've always been like that. And there's this guy that was he was harassing an ex-girlfriend at her house. You know, nothing physical, but she didn't want him there anymore. And so I said, "You're a trespass warrant. Here's paper, sign it right here." Mm-hmm. And later that day, like a few hours that day, I get a call. He's over there again.
Yeah.
So I drive over there, and he's not drunk or anything. And so I'm like, well, he's not drunk. He's not on drugs. I open the door. I look at him. I was like, dude, are you retarded? He said, you can't call me retarded. I was like, I just did. I'm like, I mean, people think we're not the PC police.
No. You know, I try to do my best to be courteous and polite and not use language that would, you know, inflame someone's anger. Yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah.
You know, I operate under the idea that you catch more flies with honey. So I try to be really kind and just talk to them like they're a friend. You know,
yeah.
Hey man, here's what's going on. You know, but there are times where that's just not working. No. And sometimes you just gotta get rough to get the point across. I mean, and you know,
of course we're talking verbally rough.
Yeah, verbally rough to get the point across. Sometimes you have to snap them out of that mode that they're in. Hey, dumbass, listen. This is what you know.
And people don't always. I'm sorry. I've tried explaining to this when I was on that tour, and I was talking to a Mormon minister, and he didn't like my shirt. I was wearing that shirt actually. Jesus is a badass shirt. He said, "You don't have to cuss to people." I'm like, I was like, I'll tell you what. A little over a decade of law enforcement and 3 different interrogation schools will say you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with some people, you have to speak the language they speak in order for them to actually understand. And it's hard to understand that.
Yeah.
But it's true. If you are constantly, I mean, you go back to high school. If you spoke like a Poindexter, people weren't going to associate with you as much. Not the cool kids, quote unquote. And because that's our natural, we want people to be like us.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, and I've had this happen several times where you've had people that you're talking to and you're trying to be proper and you're not using any swear words, you're using proper English, and you're trying to be very to the point, and then they look at you like, why are you talking down to me?
Yeah.
Why are you treating me like a criminal?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just trying to talk to you. And happens more to some of the people I work with than me. Like I said, I try to be more friendly when the way I talk to people. But yeah, I mean, they'll look at you like he's talking down to me.
Yeah.
And so you've got to get on their level. And that's the thing is, like 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to stop them from having to go to jail.
Yeah.
You know, like help me help you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that you don't have to go to jail here, but if you keep doing what you're doing, we're going to end up there. Yeah. And it's crazy.
That's what I tell people. I was like, the fact is if you go to jail and it's because I'm the one who put the cuffs on you, it's not going to be dismissed. Yeah. Why? Because I don't want to take you to jail. Cops that get their stuff dismissed is because they just want to take anybody to jail. Mm-hmm. And they don't do their paperwork right, or they don't do this right. Me, I make sure everything is done right, and I do what I can not to arrest you.
Right.
And me arresting you is generally for your benefit. Mm-hmm. You know, and so getting them to understand that, and you have to speak the way they do, because you're right. If you talk just professional, they'll think you're talking down to them. A lot of people, because they automatically think you think you're better than them.
Right.
So if you act like you're friends, I mean, I don't know how many interrogation schools you've gone through. I think you've gone through at least one. But they all said the very same thing. Every school of thought has the same thing. Mm-hmm. Talk like they do.
Right.
Make them feel like you are one and the same, like you would be friends outside.
Right.
You know, no matter who they are. And I had the ability to do that very well. And that's why I was successful at it. I could talk to a pedophile the same way.
Yeah.
Inside, I was disgusted. I was mad. I was angry.
Yep.
But to him, I was like, my job isn't to say you're guilty or not guilty. My job is just collect evidence.
Right. Yeah. You're not in there talking to that guy, trying to get the point across that what he did was a horrible, terrible thing. And by God, we're going to throw the book at you. You're in there trying to get familiar with this guy and get on his level to where he feels comfortable telling you the things that he did.
Yeah.
So you have the evidence that you need to put this guy away.
Everybody wants to talk. That's the fact. That's why they usually tell their friends or somebody else. They all want to tell somebody.
Yep.
I had this one case. This woman came up to me or came over and said that her husband or her boyfriend, I can't remember how they were related. They were in a relationship, was abusing her child.
Mm-hmm.
And so, apparently spanked him too hard with a belt and left some warps, which honestly is not necessarily criminal intent.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen, but that's my job to find out if he intended for that to happen,
right,
or if it just happened. And so I'm sitting there talking to him, and then I realized that he gets rough with his wife, just the way he was talking. And I was like, man, man, I've been married at that time twice. And I said, sometimes them women, I was like, you just can't shut them up. Of course, I know I'm going to get, oh, he hates women. No, just sometimes they just don't shut up.
This was to get the guy to talk. Yeah. This is not his personal feelings.
Unless you're Mike's wife, the second one. But I was like, man, I bet she was like that a lot. She seems like that type. He's like, she would just start getting on to me. I'm just like, I was like, yeah, you just leave me alone. And she keeps on following you to every room. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, shut up. And she just will not shut up. And she gets right in your face and you just get that anxiety. You're just like, you push her back and she won't stop. And so you push her harder and she just still won't stop. So you put your hands over her mouth. She won't stop. So you grab her by the throat and go like that. And you squeeze really hard and she just won't stop until she almost passes out. He's like, yeah, exactly. I was like, write that down right there. And he wrote that down. He just literally wrote down that he choked his wife out, which is a felony, by the way.
Yep.
Which he was there for a child abuse investigation. Mm-hmm. It got thrown out because the DA said, come on now. And I was like, because she wouldn't prosecute.
Right. And that's the sad thing about it is, especially on those domestics, is, you can build the perfect case against this guy, get every piece of evidence that you need, that they're absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, this guy assaulted his wife. Yeah. But if the wife won't testify against him, you have an uncooperative witness and the case goes.
Yep.
And the DA's office, people don't understand, once it's out of our hands, it's on the DA's office, and then they want to come to us and go, well, I filed charges against this person. Why didn't they stick? Don't ask me. I did the best job that I know how to do. The DA's office is who decided to dismiss it. So,
but the public's going to blame you because this guy is not. He should be in jail. The cops won't arrest him. They won't do anything.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times these DAs get overwhelmed with cases, and so the focus isn't on justice anymore. The focus is on clearing the docket. Yeah. And so unfortunately things fall through the cracks.
And a lot of them are really concerned about conviction rates.
Yes.
And that's why I tell people with like crimes like sex crime is hard to prove. Yeah. People don't understand how hard it is to prove whether somebody, especially molestation and child molestation, it's really hard to prove because you have to be specially certified to even interrogate a child. Mm-hmm. You can't just interrogate a child or talk to a child or interview a child like other people because you could easily lead them into saying something that wasn't true. Right. And a lot of times they were already led to say something that wasn't true.
Yeah, they have to be forensically interviewed by somebody who's trained on how to do that. That's, we get as much information as we need to determine that there's a crime that's happened, And then at that point, we stop.
Yeah.
Okay, don't tell me anymore. We're going to get you set up with a forensic interview.
Yeah.
And let them go into the details.
Yeah. If you're
And-
lucky and you have a bigger department or a department that they actually sent somebody to school to do that, it'll be there. But a lot of times these smaller departments, we have to get somebody from like DHS.
Yeah, usually it's DHS that comes in and does it. So,
People just don't understand how complicated it is when you see sex offenders not going to prison.
mm-hmm.
It's not cops. It's not. And sometimes I can't even blame the DA because it is hard to prove. And so
Right.
they're like, listen, they use scare tactics and say, and sometimes it's bad because people that didn't do anything will get scared.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to prison for 20 years. So if I sign this paper, I'm just going to have to register as a sex offender. Yeah, just register. It saves you 20 years in prison and all this money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll do it. Or it'll be somebody that actually did it and like, I don't want to go to prison, so I'm going to do this.
Right.
And then they're, it's like getting a slap on the hand for anything. They're not going to stop.
No, I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but I know that it's pretty high as far as like sex offenders that reoffend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things. There's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, and so I kind of had this working theory on especially the child sex offenders, the pedophiles.
Yeah.
From whenever I worked in the jail, I noticed that all of the ones that I dealt with had a very childish mindset.
Very.
Like when you were talking to them, their personality, the way they carried themselves, it was almost like in their head, they were a child.
They stopped maturing at about 12
Right.
or 13.
Their mental maturity was, of like a preteen.
Yeah.
And so these kids that they're committing these crimes against, in their minds, that's their peers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and don't get me wrong, I think that a sex crime against a child is a horrendous offense and needs to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'm not saying that these guys don't need to go to jail.
Yeah.
But I think I personally think that there needs to be some more study and research that goes into that, because it could potentially be a developmental issue that could be treated.
Yeah.
Think about years and years and years ago, before we knew what bipolar disorder was, they think that, or schizophrenia, the explanation was he's possessed.
I was just about to say.
He's possessed by the devil, and the only way to fix him is to, and then, medical science got to the point where we figured out, hey, we could treat this with medication and this person can live a normal life and be a contributing member of society. And I think with the sex offenders, I think that it's such a taboo subject that people, I don't know if there's people researching it or not. I think people are maybe afraid to, because again, I had to give the disclaimer that I'm not defending these people just to even talk about
because
it.
people automatically, if you do anything
to the benefit
of a person that's
Right.
guilty of something, people automatically think that you're on their side.
Yep, that you're defending them. I see a problem that I think could potentially be a mental health problem that could potentially be treated if we had the ability to research it enough and figure it out.
Yeah.
Because, where did it start is the question.
Yeah.
And not all of them, but some of them, it could be from a past trauma. We know for a fact that in a lot of cases, when a child is sexually assaulted, they stop maturing at the age of when the assault occurred. And they could be, so if a girl is molested when she's 12, until that trauma is dealt with, what we were saying is, she gets molested when she's 12, mentally she stops maturing until that trauma is dealt with. And so she may be 20 years old, but mentally she's still a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And that trauma has to be dealt with, has to be talked out. Could take years of therapy but eventually they can get them to progress past it. And so, it could be that you've got this sex offender who's mentally like a 12-year-old because that's when he got assaulted, because that's, statistics have shown that a lot of people that are molested when they're young have a potential to do that as well when they're an adult, because unless it's properly dealt with.
And not everybody that
Not
was
everybody,
but there is the potential.
And I guess I should say, I shouldn't word it that way. It's not that if you're molested, you're going to molest, but they've figured out that a lot of people who do commit those crimes had those crimes committed against them when they were young.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. There's a song about that.
Is there?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I mean, I was, to be honest, I was an adult before I learned that most women were not molested.
Yeah.
I actually thought growing up that all girls get molested.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't, as a child, what goes on in your house, that's your normal. And you don't know that that's not normal until somebody points it out to you. And for a lot of us, especially like if we went to public school, you start to learn the differences between what goes on in your house and your friend's house, because you discuss things that go, well, they're like, no, we don't do that at my house. But, if you're one of those kids that's homeschooled or your parents just didn't take you to school, then you don't know until you're an adult. And then you realize, hey, that wasn't okay what happened.
Yeah.
And
to
take it to a less severe subject, you've heard, I'm sure you've probably seen it. I think it went pretty viral on social media, the story of the poo knife.
No.
So I guess it was in a forum, I think on maybe like Reddit or 4chan or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was this person that was telling a story about how they determined that a poo knife is not a normal thing. And so basically the story was, growing up, this person, they kept this old rusty kitchen knife in the bathroom, and that was the poo knife. So if you took a dump and the turd was too big to flush, they would use this knife and cut it into smaller pieces inside the toilet bowl so that it could flush down the toilet. Wow. And this kid grew up in this house with that being totally normal. And so as an adult, he's dating a girl, he's at her house, leaves a pretty big one in the toilet, and asks her, "Where's your poo knife?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And then he had to explain to her the poo knife, and that's the light bulb. I think we're the only people that had a poo knife. I don't think that's a normal thing.
No.
So he was asking in the forum, like, does anybody else do this? And the response was overwhelmingly no. But it wasn't until, and I think this guy was maybe in his like mid to late 20s, that he discovered that a poo knife is not something that most people do.
That's funny. Wow. Yeah, I would have never thought of it. But it kind of makes you think: are they dumb, or are they really smart? Because it's kind of an ingenious thing.
If you got plumbing issues, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, you can't blame them.
My adopted daughter, she's 21 now, but she started living with us when she was 15. And one of the first things that we noticed was that her bathroom trash was getting full really quickly, and it was wads of toilet paper. And I was like, "What's going on here? Why is there so much toilet paper in the trash?" And she said, "Well, because that's where it goes." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well," I said, "Is this like, are you blowing your nose? What is?" Like, she goes, "No, I wipe and then I put it in the trash can." And I said, "Why are you doing that? You flush it down the toilet."
Yeah.
And she's like, "You do?" And I said, "Yes, you flush it down the toilet." And she said, "Well, the house that I grew up in, we had to throw the toilet paper in the trash because otherwise it would clog up the pipes and everything." The plumbing was so bad that they were told by their adopted mother, her previous adopted mother, that they weren't allowed to flush toilet paper, that they had to put it in the trash. Wow. And she didn't know that wasn't what everyone did.
Yeah.
And so we had to explain to her, no, we have We have good plumbing.
Yeah.
You can flush your toilet paper down the toilet. You don't have to put it in the trash.
Well, a lot of people, as much as people can hate on social media, there's a lot of good things about it because people are starting to realize what is normal, what's not acceptable. Right. There's going to be growing pains. We're going to see things like we'll get political for a second. The far left and the far right, typically the far left is the ones that are doing crazy stuff. And people will think that's the norm because that's what, and then you find out, no. Most Democrats aren't like that.
No.
They're actually normal people. You won't be able to tell the difference between them and a conservative Republican.
Yeah, you're not seeing all these people on social media, all these videos of people out screaming on the streets and rioting and everything else. Yeah. That is not the typical Democrat. Yeah. That's not the typical liberal that you're seeing. That is the vocal minority. Yeah. That's out there. They're the most vocal. Yeah. And so it seems like that's what's going on, but really they're just being the loudest. You could have it's that the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing, You can have 10 wheels on something, but the one that's squeaking is going to get the grease. Yeah. And so you have to keep that in mind. They don't speak for the group as a whole. And I think we figured that out this election. Yeah, I think there was clearly a lot of more moderate liberals and Democrats that saw a problem with their candidate and chose to go the other way.
Yeah, because people aren't as loyal to a party as people think they are. Right. There's a lot of people that they're like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm like that. That's why I refuse to call myself a Republican. I'm not one. Right. Because saying I'm a Republican means that people are just going to assume I'm loyal to it. I'm like, I don't care what you call them. Right. It's like, this is what I believe. I was like, I don't care what you do in the bedroom. None of my business. I don't care what religion you are. Right. I believe in our rights. Right. And that's my thing. What you do in the bedroom is your business. Yeah. But your bedroom should stay out of my kid's school. Yeah. And so I don't hate Democrats. I don't personally believe like I'll ever be one. Yeah. Because I just don't feel like that party's beliefs align with mine. But to call myself a strict Republican, probably not either, because there are some things that my party does that, I'm registered as a Republican, but there are things that some things that my party does that I don't agree with. Yeah. And so, but I can't, my problem is I can't call myself a libertarian because one of the main tenets of being a libertarian is that religion doesn't play a factor. And so I can't do that because to me, my religion and my beliefs are everything and control all the decisions that I make. And I think that's something that we can agree with on both sides of the aisle. I think that there are Christian Democrats and Republicans that make their decisions based on their beliefs. And but then you get the far edges where it goes a little bit haywire. Yeah. So, but, like I said, I'm just, to me, the smaller the government, the better is where I sit on things. I think the government's job is to protect our rights. Yep. That's primarily the job of the government. I can't say I don't believe in government. I saw an interview of a libertarian, and he actually said that he's like, most libertarians don't want any government. He said, honestly, we need government. Yeah, we do. We need a small enough amount to protect our rights. That military we need, because if our military wasn't strong, we'd be controlled by Canada. Mm-hmm. And we've got to have that force. That's why just changing our presidency is able to change the course of the world because of how strong our military can be. Right. And, as a cop, people go, how can you be calling for small government but be a police officer? And it's like, it's two separate things. Yeah. I'm saying that the government overreach is getting too far. My job, but that's not what I do.
They're trying to regulate everything to death. I'm just here because we as a society have determined that we believe that these things are wrong
Yeah.
and should have consequences. And somebody has to bring that person before a judge to face those consequences. And that's my job. My job is to make sure that the crackhead isn't breaking into your car. And if he does, that he goes to jail for it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here to try to limit your rights and freedoms. I'm here trying to make sure that your freedoms and rights are kept intact.
Yeah.
And that people are not infringing on your right to live a happy life, you know?
Yeah. I had the conversation with a libertarian who we agreed to disagree on about a lot of things. And he said he was strictly against law enforcement because it's unconstitutional. We don't need it. We can handle things
ourselves.
Govern ourselves. I said, so if somebody is driving 100 miles an hour, because he said speeding is against, it's not, you shouldn't do this about, I was like, listen, speeding is not a criminal offense anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, but besides that, I said, what if somebody's driving 100 miles an hour down your neighborhood? I'm like, so we shouldn't do anything about it. He said, no, we'll take care of it. Just like, if, we can do it without cops. I was like, so what do you do? I was like, we just gather our people up and we go get them. I was like, oh, so what you're saying, it's not that you're against what a cop does. You just want to be the one that does it.
Yeah.
I was like, which means that you have to quit your job.
Right.
You have to start doing this. And then now you're the cop.
Right. Yeah. It's like, let's walk this through. So we don't have any cops. We have decided as a society that we're going to handle this stuff ourselves. If we see things that people are doing wrong, we're going to deal with it. Okay. Who's going to deal with it? Yeah. Well, not everybody, because not everybody is mentally or physically equipped to be able to handle something like that. So it's like, okay, so we're going to need to get some people that first of all are willing to go do it.
Yeah.
And then have the means to do it. They're big enough, strong enough, mean enough, whatever.
They have the weaponry.
So we're going to need tools because, this person may not go willingly. So we're going to need, we're going to need some handcuffs to put them in. And we probably better take a gun.
Yeah.
Because, he might try to hurt us. We need to be able to defend ourselves. But then, he may not recognize our authority either to hold him accountable for that. So we need something that designates us as the authority to be able, wait a minute, sounds a whole lot like a cop.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not here because one day somebody said, hey, I just want to create this group of people that goes out and takes people to jail.
Yeah.
Cops arose out of necessity. We needed people that were out there enforcing the law, keeping law and order.
Yeah. And
that's a job that not everyone wants to do. And there are a select few of us that stood up and said, I'll take that on. I'll do that job.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people have to remember, especially whenever they're calling for like defunding the police and everything else. You ask somebody that's in favor of defunding the police, if there's a active shooter inside that elementary school over there killing people, are you going to go in that building?
Do you even know how?
Would you go in there knowing that somebody's in there with a rifle killing people? No, never. Not for $1 million. Okay, well, I'm going to do it for $20 an hour. So, it's, which fortunately I make more than that now, but most cops start out, around, at least in our area, around $50,000 a year.
God, I wish I would have done that. I started out at $10 an hour.
Yeah, so did I. I think when I started, I was making like $29,000 a year.
Yeah, I made like 24,000 and something.
Yeah. And so here I am, making, just barely over minimum wage, but being told that I could potentially have to go put myself in a situation that your average American would never do.
Yeah.
And so I think people need to give us a little grace when it comes.
Yeah, people don't understand. They don't understand it at all. They think they do because they've watched cops. Or I had a conversation that he was trashing law enforcement because I made a comparison about and I was very adamant. I said, I'm not hating on the military at all. I have a lot of respect for all servicemen and women. But why don't people give law enforcement the same respect? And I said, you do realize when 9/11 happened, who was the first on scene?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when anybody attacks America, anybody, law enforcement is the first on the scene. A lot of times we beat fire departments when there's fires. We
mean second responders?
Yes, second responders. But you know, we beat, and a lot of times they will not enter a place until we clear it.
Yeah, they stage and wait for us to make the scene safe.
And I understand it because we've been trained for it.
Right.
You know, but a lot of people think, well, the military does this. Yeah, but even if you want the military to show up during a terrorist attack on American soil, it is going to take a long time, hours to just get a quick response.
Hours, if not days, to mobilize your National Guard and everything else. Yeah, I mean,
we're the first to show up.
Police officers, we are the front line, and so it can be a thankless job. Fortunately, the community that I work in is very pro law enforcement, and so we really enjoy our community being behind us. But it's not like that everywhere, as we've seen on social media and everything else. And, you know, when all the riots and the BLM riots and stuff and the calls for defunding the police and everything else were going on, that never really touched us.
Yeah.
But we saw it around the rest of the country, and you can't help but get nervous, you know, like, man, is that going to make it here? Yeah. Fortunately, it didn't. And I think we're seeing America make a correction now, because a lot of those places did do that. They caved and they started defunding the police, and now crime has risen
a lot.
And now they're saying, oh crap, we need more law enforcement. And there's law enforcement saying, well, then we need our funding back.
And a lot of them won't even go back over there.
Yeah.
They will not return to that area. And so finding good officers, you know, it's not just finding warm bodies.
Right.
You know, you've got to find, and granted, you can't vet for everything.
Right.
You know, you can't vet asshole. You know, you can't vet a cop that's going to be badge heavy or corrupt a lot of times. You can think so, but it's like I tell people when somebody says, I'm not a criminal, I was like, listen, everybody's broke the law, just not everybody's gotten caught.
Right.
You know, so you can't vet everything. However, if you want people to come to your department, if you want good people showing up and said, I want to work there, you've got to treat them right.
Right.
And if you have a history of not, you're going to keep on getting these officers that know that if they just need a job, they're going to go there.
Right.
You know, like local department, everybody knows Broken Arrow, it's hard to get on. Every time they have an opening of 10 guys, they'll have 300 apply.
Yeah.
And it's because they're a good department.
They're a highly paid department.
A very highly paid department. But most departments aren't like that.
Yeah.
The people that require bachelor's degrees, you're telling me that you're going to hire a kid that has been in college his whole adult life and then becomes a cop. Never experienced anything. At least make them go work at a jail.
Right.
Because you learn a lot working at a jail.
Yeah, because I mean, our department, we require an associate's degree, or at least the equivalent, 60 hours. But then some of the departments close to us, you know, they require bachelor's degrees. And we get a pay incentive if we have a bachelor's, because I got my bachelor's, and so I get a pay increase for that. But when I started, I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I started in a jail, and you know, was continuing my education, getting the hours I needed to meet the qualifications to become a police officer. And I feel like every police officer should have to work some time in a jail.
Yeah. That's way more important than education.
Because that right there teaches you how to deal with people, because in the type of jail that I worked in, it wasn't like everybody's in a cell all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you're in what they called a pod, which was this massive open area. And yeah, there were individual rooms with doors that had 2 bunks each. Yeah. But during the day, those places each one of those pods would hold 94 inmates. And during the day, all 94 of those inmates are out and about, wandering around. There's nothing between you and them. And you're the only detention officer in that room. And you've got help down the hall that can come if something happens. But ultimately, until help gets there, it's you and them.
You better know verbal judo.
And so you learn how to de-escalate.
Yeah.
You learn how to talk to people, you learn how to de-escalate, and you learn respect.
Yes.
Because disrespecting somebody is what's going to set them off faster than anything else. And so you learn how to treat people with respect, because if you give them respect, they give you respect. And that's what I told, you said it earlier. I told some of the people that I helped train, the only difference between us and them is that we didn't get caught.
Yeah. For
a lot of that stuff, because we're not in a prison. This isn't heinous crimes that all of these people are here. Some of them are.
Yeah.
But some of them are here for just little things.
Yeah.
Little tiny things that you probably did too. Or a speeding ticket that they forgot to pay and now they got arrested because they didn't have the money to pay their speeding ticket.
Or they didn't know how to shut up.
Yeah, they didn't know how to shut up. And so you got to treat people with respect, and you learn that working in a jail.
Yeah.
And I feel like once you've spent some time in a jail and you've learned how to communicate with people, and you've learned more, even also importantly, you learned how they communicate.
Yeah.
You learn how the criminal element communicates, the lingo, things like that. Then I feel like it makes you a better officer in the long run, as opposed to this 21-year-old kid who has never worked in a jail, never worked in any type of law enforcement area at all. And you hand them a gun and a badge and say, you're in charge now. And then that's where I feel like sometimes officers tend to get, like you said, a little badge heavy.
Yeah.
And so now as a training officer, you've got to back that down. You've got to teach them how to communicate and not just walk in there and I am the law.
Yeah.
And so
I've never seen where that worked.
Nope, it never does.
No.
People as a whole just don't like being told what to do.
No.
Especially Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's in our DNA. We do not like being told what to do. And so you've got to convince people to do the right thing to their benefit.
Yeah.
And
a lot of times make it feel like it's their idea.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that definitely being in a jail before going out on the street should be a requirement in my mind.
I agree. I honestly would love to keep talking, because we have always been able to just keep talking unless I'm tired and driving and I just don't want to talk. But I think we've been on for an hour or so.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to have you back on and talk about something else, because
this one kind of just turned into a whole law enforcement thing.
Yeah.
We got more stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, we've both have some experiences that I think would benefit people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think they know things and they don't know. They just know of.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a nerd and you study the laws and you study physics and you study science and you study all this other stuff and the arts and the histories and stuff like that, because we were both kind of nerds. We just like learning stuff.
Just like to learn. Something catches my fancy and I get on Google and I start going down a rabbit hole. Learning
Do you know what I heard
it.
about Napoleon? I'm like, well, he was actually 5'7", which was pretty tall over there. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll have you on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.
Hey guys, I want to personally thank everyone for liking and sharing my videos. If you want to continue to see my content, all you got to do is press that subscribe button, and I'll notify you as soon as a new video comes out. I don't get paid for any of this. So if you want to buy some of my merch, like my shirts, like Jesus is a Badass or my Don't Be a Dick shirt, you can easily go to my merch store, which is at SOGTV.org, which I will have it in the description at every video. So push that. Go buy yourself a shirt. I appreciate it. Have a blessed day, and I will see you at the next episode. Thank you.